Welcome to the latest home league match preview of this 25-26 season here on Stones TV and the Maidstone United podcast, where we look ahead to a visit from the Angels of Tonbridge. So another Gilbert brace means another weekend smile on your face. 2 weekends on the bounce now. Could get used to this, couldn't we? Scott Davies, fan of the pod, he got in touch online, informed us of his employment status and a few other bits in conversation there. He was very complimentary of a Stones side who ended their October in style, in direct contrast to their September. Your thoughts on the win at the Rebels, where we scored 4-4-4?
We did indeed. It was a 4-star performance, wasn't it? The difference, obviously that was the last game of the month, and a couple of players have come out in the local press this week, and the difference between September and October is just like chalk and cheese, isn't it?
Exactly.
And what's pleasing is everybody's contributed, aren't they?
Yeah.
Jeffy's made a late run of form in now, and he's got a couple of goals in his last couple of games of the month, along with the assists as well, and that coincides with Anthony Papadopoulos coming back into the side at the beginning of the month he's coming back in at the end of second half sub at Maidenhead, didn't he? The last game we lost, but it's just pleasing to see, isn't it? And it is just like the whole of the George has been saying through that barren spell in September, trust the process, and I think in hindsight, looking back now, that 2 week gap after the Maidenhead game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's literally just helped us, and it's kicked us on, and Jeffy, as I say, he's sort of got that starting berth. He's made it his own, hasn't he? Really, and he was in and out of the side at the beginning of the season, and he wasn't the player that left us a couple of seasons ago to go to Ebbsfleet. But just with Papadopoulos coming in, and John Gilbert playing further forward, Sam Corn coming back into the side. TJ just he's sort of normal, dependable best. Just
Taylor at the back.
Yeah, and as I say, Taylor's come in as well. He came in right at the beginning of the month, didn't he? He came in on again a second half substitute at Dagenham, and as George has said, he hasn't put a foot wrong, hasn't he? And for somebody that's so young, he's just got so much maturity to his game, and he's keeping Lexus Beedon out of the side at the moment, and that's all credit to him, because he's done that on merit, and like George said, if you come in and you perform well, you keep your place, and that's how it should be. And they're all driving each other on at the moment, and as I say, you can just see that sort of the style that George wants to play, that high pressing sort of style, and I think that was really evident at Slough, because for an opposition manager to come out after the game and say, that's probably one of the best performances from a Maidstone side, and they faced us a number of times throughout the years, haven't they? And they've always had our number, but it was just from the minute one right to the end, with Jeffy getting that goal right at the end there, they just didn't let up, and it was just that it was like a suffocation, really, wasn't it? And we're getting our rewards now, and hopefully that can continue in this next week ahead.
Well, we will look ahead to the week ahead, but we're going to take a quick look back at October then, Nigel, through the players, the manager and some of their stats. Firstly, George Elokobi was nominated for National League South Manager of the Month. We secured 13 of the 15 available points. No club gained more in the month of October, so you'd think, but we'll see. Two main contenders, looking at the socials at least, for the Stones Player of the Month, John Gilbert. He scored a pair of braces, as I've already mentioned, on a few occasions on consecutive Saturdays to fire the Stones into the playoff spots. He's also nominated for National League South Player of the Month, whilst Anthony Papadopoulos, the assist king, set up 4 goals in October before getting his first Stones goal since Christmas last year. Your thoughts on all of them, Nigel, succeeding in October?
It's just Papadopoulos coming in is just the final piece in that jigsaw, isn't he? And he's made all the others tick, and even Dion Moore, that and all of the you listen to John Gilbert talking in the press and in the post-match interviews, and Papadopoulos and Jeffy Tenga, they all give credit. The dirty work that he does, to hold that ball up. That and often he's taking 2 or 3 defenders with him, or 2 or 3 opposition players with him, which creates a space for these players to come in. And you're looking at John Gilbert's goal. They're all very similar goals. There's no sort of worldies in there, is there? They're all just sort of like making that late run into the box. And sometimes they're the most beautiful goals because you've literally carved the opposition open, haven't you?
It's wideies rather than worldies, I think.
Exactly, and that's again, we spoke to George a few times since the end of last season, and that's what that's what his mantra, wasn't it? Getting crosses in the box, and that's where we was lacking early season, getting those crosses in the box, and we had those last year from Charlie Seaman and Ben Brooks there, didn't we? And on a consistent basis, but it does take time. It's not just going to come in, and it's not like we've said before. It's not like a switch that you can just flick. So, all of these players, and credit to Anthony Papadopoulos, because he's, as we said when he came back in, he had offers to go to other National League clubs, but he chose to come here because he knew that the management style of George and Craig was good for his game, and other people, the other players in the squad, were. Which maybe they was questioning themselves that in September. But if you get a player with a quality like that come in, you've got to step your own game up, and you know that, and he's a product of that from last season. It does work. What George and Craig are saying in training, it does work, and you can elevate your game. And as I say, long may it continue. But I think it's just a collective really, and the team have probably just got together and they're like, right, let's do it now, and they have, and they've performed, and it's a credit to the management style of the George and Craig, and all the other backroom staff, that they're getting the best out of these players, and they're now sort of proving that potential that George and Craig saw in them.
Exactly that. And by the time you watch or listen to this, the vote would have closed. Keep an eye on the socials to see who wins, as well as on our next pod in the coming days. So to Tonbridge and their departures since the summer, Liam Vincent and Mo Dabra joined Sutton United. Ronnie Nelson and Jamie Fielding signed for Ebbsfleet. Luca Botti left for Horsham. Ben Mundele departed for Ramsgate. Brandon Pierrick left the club to rejoin Croydon Athletic very recently. Joe Tyree departed for Herne Bay. Luke Cook left for Gosport Borough via Weymouth. And Mickey Berry left and signed for his former manager Jay Saunders at Folkestone Invicta. Craig Nelson came in as manager in the summer and departed in late September. He is now back at Lewes about a month or so after his Angels departure. Alan Dunn, a former number 2 at Bromley, was named new manager a day after Nelson's departure was announced. So Nigel, and Nelson led clear out in the summer, and he promptly followed those players out the door himself. Your thoughts on those dearly departed Angels?
It's a difficult one to sort of judge from the outside, isn't it? We've said it before, and we said it in our podcast for the folks in FA Cup game, didn't we? It's very difficult to sort of like, a lot of those players that they did have a clear out from, it's very difficult to sort of perform knowing that manager that's in situ or on gardening leave, as Jay was, is not going to be there next season. And there was a lot of players would have been sort of searching for their next opportunities before the end of the season, knowing that they weren't there to sort of, they weren't going to impress a manager because the manager wasn't there. I know Scott Wagstaff stayed there, as we'll come on to, but it's just a difficult situation, and it's made it even more bizarre with Craig Nelson coming in from Lewes, and then just as literally as there was an upturn in form, he was said thank you very much, and they've moved on. But as we know, it was probably a done deal. Excuse the pun there.
Pun very much intended, yes.
But I think they, probably if they admit it, they're never going to come out in a minute, are they? But it was probably Alan Dunn was probably the one they wanted in at the beginning of the summer, but probably for his contract and that they couldn't get him in at that point, and Nelson was the sacrificial lamb kind of thing. But he's now since gone back to Lewes, and a couple of those players have followed him back there. So and that they've sort of continued that sort of form. They've not really. I know we'll look at it, but they've sort of maintained that sort of mid-table position, haven't they? So it's it's certainly going to be an interesting game because it's going to be interesting in the fact that we normally play them on Boxing Day and New Year's Day, don't we? So
earlier
literally,
test, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're normally at the midway point of the season. Sometimes we've already played some of the teams twice before we even played Tonbridge. So so it's going to be interesting to see how it does pan out. But again, we go into these fixtures as Kent's top non-league team, don't we? After our recent upturning form, that's not been the case for a good number of seasons. I mean, if you count Bromley as being like when they was in non-league, they was always classed as a Kent team, weren't they? So, probably not since like the GM Vauxhall Conference days have we been the top Kent non-league team. So, and we're obviously top of the form table as well going into the game. So, certainly plenty of positives to look forward to going into the game, and as I say, it'd be interesting to see how it pans out.
Indeed. So in between the sticks, and Jacob Adams signed from Wealdstone. He's got 4 clean sheets in his 13 league appearances this season. Alexander Dubov was on the bench for the first 3 league games, and then Mackenzie Foley has been on the bench ever since then. So Nigel, a solid number 1 with some limited National League experience, but a reliable shot stopper with some of those stats there.
Yeah, he came in with sort of a little bit of a fanfare. He's a young up and coming keeper. He's very much similar probably to Nathan Argyle. He's had a few loan spells at National League sides. It's very difficult to sort of come and establish yourself if you're coming in off of a loan, isn't it? And this is his opportunity to shine and really stake that claim as the number 1. And he's been in the side at the start of the season, as you say. He's been an ever present there, and it's something to build upon, isn't it? And it's him gaining confidence in his own ability, as well as propelling the team up the table, which is what he's done in the last few weeks.
So in the defence, and Toby Omole signed in the summer. He was most recently another one from Wealdstone. Defender Sam German joined on loan from Bromley until January. Defender Arthur Penny signed after leaving Chelmsford, formerly of Lewis. You'll see the pattern emerge soon. Defender Bradley Williams also signed from Chelmsford. Slightly different pattern, I think, there. Defender Naz Bakrin returned for 25-26. He has 1 goal so far this season, a leveller at Maidenhead last midweek. Defender Jack Matten signed on loan from Wycombe Wanderers. Bailey Akehurst was retained for the season ahead. Fullback Carl Smith joined from Braintree Town. So a few loanees and also those with National League South experience there, Nigel, should make life difficult for the Stones front line come Saturday.
Sam German there is a name that he's a recent addition, and again he's pretty much like Taylor forehand coming in for us, isn't he? Both from Bromley, both had that sort of same sort of experience there. So it'd be interesting to see how that one pans out. But like you say, they've got no sort of standout players there, have they? But they're all players that have played at this level before. There's no sort of like real youngsters there, is there? So it's probably a mixture of that sort of experience and players learning their trade. Again, Alan Dunn coming in, was he? I think he was a defender, wasn't he?
Defensive midfield, I think. One of those who
at Millwall, and he's obviously had a quite a good career. Probably an understatement. He had an excellent career, hasn't he?
Would have been FA Cup final, possibly.
Yeah, I think he was. He was
Cardiff,
part of that Millwall team, and over 300 appearances for Millwall. So he's somebody that can sort of help these sort of young players, and hopefully get them on their journey to sort of progressing up the leagues.
So in the midfield, and Matty Warren signed from Lewis. He has 1 goal this season. He started the comeback at Dagenham back in mid-August. Midfielder Alfie Allen did likewise, came across from East Sussex. He also has 1 goal this season in that same Dagenham game with the equaliser. Certain Jordan Higgs returned after departing from Maidstone. Midfielder Marcus Sablier reunited briefly with Craig Nelson after joining from Lewis. Scott Wagstaff, previously mentioned of course, signed on for 25-26. He has 1 goal this season with the equaliser at home to Dover at the start of October. Ex-Stone against the Stone, Sean Shields also signed on again for 25-26. So a couple of ex-Stones to go toe-to-toe with at the weekend. Your thoughts on their midfield, Nigel?
again, it's that balance there in midfield, isn't it? We know what Jordan Heath brings. You know, he was with us last year, wasn't he? He was actually the captain in the playoff final against Bournemouth, and you know, he's very much sort of like a player that's settled at Tonbridge, so it's just sort of like a homecoming for him, really. You know, he's admitted in his interview that it was a good experience coming here, and he's learned a lot. But you know, hopefully he can go back and rub that onto the rest of the squad.
Yeah.
And we know what the quality that Sean Shields brings, because he was probably one of the standout loanees, wasn't he, that we got in under that in the Harry Wheeler period. And yeah, and then you know, you got the likes of Marcus Labia. Again, he's another one of these sort of talented players. You know, came through from Bromley. So again, you know, although he came in and from Lewis with under Nielsen, Dunn would have worked with him at Bromley, because you know he when he burst onto the scene, he scored. I remember he scored that sort of like overhead kick on against, I think it might have been against Torquay on a national. It was on, probably on TNT Sports at the time. I know it was replayed loads of times and that, but he's never really sort of kicked on really from that when he burst onto the scene a few years ago. So you know, he's going to want to sort of try and reinvent himself. He dropped down a few levels to sort of come back up again, and yeah, you say there's that sort of experience there and that sort of youngsters there, and so you know, it's just about, again, bedding it all in, isn't it? You know, all these players are going to be sort of like trying to impress the new manager. You know, he's only been in for a few weeks now. Yeah. You know, they lost in the FA Cup as well to Chatham, didn't they? Yes. So again, if they'd have won that game, and that was a full qualifying round game a couple of weeks ago, you know, this game would have been off, wouldn't it? They'd been making a trip to Buxton. But yeah, they're here, and you know, they're coming into a big Kent derby, and maybe from their point of view, that's just the tonic they need, you know, to get over that sort of that hangover of being knocked out of the FA Cup. Sometimes you want a game that's going to sort of push your buttons rather than sort of be like a drab sort of game, don't you? Yeah. So it's just, again, it's just all those different factors that are in play, isn't it? You know, new manager, the disappointment of the being knocked out of the FA Cup, the inconsistency. You know, they were an inconsistent team. They're in the mid-table. You know, they're not sort of been on a big run of wins. I know they had a couple of FA Cup rounds they came through, but mixed in with that, there's been a few disappointing results as well. But then also they got that game against, they got that draw against Dagenham and Ridgebridge early in the season, didn't they? And I think they beat Worthing as well in there somewhere.
Nelson's last game, yeah.
Yeah, so that, you know, there's certainly a few sort of points of reference there they can draw upon, and you know, so from their point of view, it's just about getting that consistency, isn't it?
Exactly. So to the strikers, and Bobby Unwin joined from Lewis. He has 3 goals this season, his most recent being the winner at Worthing that we just mentioned. Brodie Pert returned on loan from Wickham until January. He's got 2 goals this season, bagging the winner against Dover most recently. Winger Ricky Corboa, not Balboa, signed from Carshalton Athletic. He's played in League One for Northampton. Striker Martel Taylor-Crossdale signed after a successful trial period during pre-season. He was at Welling last season. Forward Eddie Simon signed from Kingstonian. He's got 4 goals already this season. Most recent was an equaliser at home to Horsham. Oluwabunmi Babajide signed for 25-26 after departing Hampton and Richmond. He has 1 goal this season, 3rd in the 3-1 win at Salisbury. So Nigel, a forward line that's not been shy of goals so far this season. Your thoughts on their forward line?
They have been scoring the goals, haven't they? And you want a player to sort of go on a run, don't you? And just get. They've sprinkled about a little bit, haven't they? You know, even the defenders there, you know, are scoring goals, and you know, certainly got the talent there. I mean, you know, isn't it Eddie Simon? He's got a hat-trick of hat-tricks in the at one point, and that was the thing. And I think one of the fans I spoke to went to a game because they was down at down that way or something. I don't know. They saw a game and they actually bumped into Eddie Simon in the shop after the game, and you know, they actually said that he's actually a dentist by profession, so that's why he's never gone full time. And so that sort of part-time model sort of suits his game. He can play at the highest level. He can sort of probably play as a part-time, and you know, like you say, 4 goals in the first, what is it, they've played now 12 games, Tonbridge. So you know, it's a good ratio considering it's the first time you've stepped up at this level, isn't it? And then, like you say, you've got Kabara that's that experience at Northampton in the Football League, and scored a few goals for them, and then the young lad from Wickham who's shipped him a few goals. So again, like we mentioned with Slabby, they've got the talent in the building. It's just about trying to get all that moulded into a team, isn't it? And again, trying to find that consistency both in performance and the statistics of getting the goals on the ball to turn that into 3 points on a Saturday. Yeah, it's that sort of intriguing sort of aspect of the game, isn't it? Where you've got a new manager coming in and again trying to find his fix. It's his first managerial role, so he's got to be able to respond to different players. You know that players, some of them want the proverbial kick up the backside, and some of them just want an arm around the shoulder, don't they? But it's him finding that balance and trying to get the best out of these players to be able to perform it and get the 3 points that's going to hopefully push them up the table, which because that's what the owners have come out of regular saying. They want to be a top half National League South team, don't they? So on a consistent basis. So that's what they're achieving to do, and from their point of view, they're going to hope it happens sooner rather than later, but just hopefully not this Saturday.
Well, they might use Eddie Simon's example and try and encourage them and give them a lollipop or a sticker, maybe. It was like pulling teeth, sorry. So to the form book, and in the FA Cup they knocked out Stenning Town and Cray Valley Paper Mills in home replays before a home defeat to Chatham Town. To the league, at home they've had 3 0-0 draws, a 3-3 with Farnborough and a 2-1 win against Dover, with losses by the same score to Enfield and Horsham on the road, and wins at Salisbury and Worthing, draws at Dagenham and Redbridge and Maidenhead, with defeats at Totton and Dorking. So Nigel, 2 of each result on the road, a mixed bag. So I'm intrigued to see which Tonbridge is going to turn up on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly that. Like I said earlier in the preview, they've got them points of reference. They know they can do it. It's no mean feat to go to Maidenhead and get a point, is it? A team that's just come down from the National League above, and they got the 3 points here at the Gallagher. As we mentioned at the top of the show, that was our last defeat, wasn't it? So they've put in some solid performances in there, and but then also they've lost to Enfield. So again, that seems to be a little bit of a bogey side to them, because I think Enfield always beat Tonbridge.
Yeah, definitely.
From memory.
Last season, yeah.
So again, it is just about consistency for them, isn't it? And just finding that sort of like trying to get the points when you're not playing at your best sometimes, and just trying to amass the points and climb that table.
So the head-to-head record between the two sides, the last 20 years or so, about 18 matches we made it, 3 Stones home wins from 9, 2 Angels away wins in 2008 and 2011, 6 wins apiece overall. Angels not beaten the Stones since 2014. So Nigel, a lot of history between the two sides that goes even further back than just the Gallagher days, mostly in the Stones' favour in recent years.
When we first came back to Gallagher, I mean, we was obviously Ryman South, and they was in that really good run, and they was in the Blue Square South as it was then.
Yes.
And they had the likes of Franny Collin and Lee Morgan, but we know what happened to them.
Yes.
In their career. Sonny Miles was obviously a legend there in them days, and they all ended up at Maidstone, and then we sort of swapped places with them, didn't we? We was the team that was in the National South, and they was in the Ryman for years, and it's definitely their game that they look forward to, isn't it? I remember seeing videos and stuff on YouTube when they got promoted from the National, was it the Ryman Prem, wasn't it? They won that Super Playoff, didn't they? And,
yes.
They was also at Maidstone United, we're coming for you, and all that kind of thing. But they've never managed to do it as yet. Yeah, exactly. Touch wood. But again, it's 2 clubs that are on a different track. I know we're in the same league. And we'll probably talk about the same sort of thing when we come on to Ebbsfleet. Yeah. But it's where all these Kent clubs. You're going to have your days where certain Kent clubs are at the top of the tree and the others are down the bottom, and it's just the way it's always been. And I'm sure they'll have their day again sometime in the future, and just hopefully not this week.
Exactly. So the match against Tonbridge Angels is all ticket for both home and away supporters. Tickets will not be available at the turnstile, so please ensure you purchase in advance via Fanbase. And if you can't make it to the game, be sure to tune in to Fred Atkins and the man to my left, Nigel Seeger, from 2:40 on Stones Live. You'll see them on the hot take and then hear them on the highlights once they go online. Maidstone's women's FA Cup run came to a spirited end at Plymouth Argyle last weekend. This weekend they host Betsanger here in the league on Sunday. The usual 3:15 kickoff. Details of that fixture and others that are upcoming for all sides available on the club socials and website now. So the Stones have had an almost faultless October, and with November starting as it traditionally does on All Saints' Day against the Angels. Sounds like the title of a Dan Brown novel to me. Here's hoping the Stones can crack the Dun Vinci Code on Saturday. Our thanks to you out there, as always, for watching or listening to the latest preview. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, just search for the Maidstone United podcast. So we'll hear you for our next preview ahead of the latest away league game, an often memorable trip to Ebbsfleet United. And as always,
come on, you Stones!